Steve, we're usually just gonna not talk a lot about things. Now we have a lot of things to talk about. We have
It's
a lot
funny
of
how that
things.
changes sometimes, huh?
It's funny how that changes sometimes. Um, Steve's a little under the weather this week, but I think he sounds fine, and I'm happy that even this is his flu game podcast, if you will, and he's pushing through, and I
There
appreciate
you go.
that from
There you go.
him.
What a soldier. What a trooper.
Yeah. This is the Stuff Summer Says podcast
Steve.
with Steve. See, look at that. He's still got his enthusiasm about him. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about, I think is the best way to put that. We have a game to recap, but more importantly, we have another game to talk about, which we did not plan on talking about because we had no plans on Penn State making the Big Ten title until we saw Steve and I saw each other about 20 minutes before kickoff on Saturday. And then the other thing I want to do this week is I want to look back at our season predictions. I think most of them are this season, like a regular season defined, except for one ish. So I think that's fair. So we'll be good there. Recap those, and then I have this week's old guy young guy, and it is not stressful because you're like I said, you're under the weather, and I want to make sure you're well rested for Saturday.
Okay.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Um, the the last the Saturday was one of the weirder Penn State football days I think I've ever experienced. And there's been some weird ones. And I could not tell you what happened in Saturday's game because I think everybody and their brother was so damn distracted about what happened before. The fact that the thing that happened, which was that needed to happen for Penn State to go to the Big Ten title, which was Michigan to beat Ohio State, was insane and fun and kind of completely different than how it happened in 2016 in many ways. And the vibes were a lot different, and the emotions were a lot different, and the emotions right now are a lot different. But I think I'm going to go back on my opinion and change it because you're allowed to do that, and that's okay. And now I want Penn State to win a Big Ten title because they're playing for a Big Ten title, and I think that's pretty darn cool. Um, I don't know. There's a million and a half different ways to go. I think, well, let's talk about Saturday before the game first, which included me seeing you before the game, which was great to see you and Russ before as you guys headed into the stadium. We walked into to Doggies to hang out and watch a little bit of football before we headed up to the stadium. We get in there and people are cheering, and I clearly missed the memo. I didn't want at the time Penn State to go to Indianapolis, and they're cheering, and every time that Michigan does something well, and then we get up to the stadium and I see you and by Gate F, and we're hanging out, standing there watching the game, and people are cheering more and more, and it just kept people kept cheering more and more, and it was like at some point I was like, you know what, I'll go with the crowd, I'll go with the flow, and I think I'm fine with it. But like I said, I remember Tyler Warren's catch during the football game for the touchdown record, maybe one of the interceptions, and that's about it. Besides freezing my butt off too, that would be
It
the
was
only other
cold.
thing.
It was not the
Uh,
coldest game I've ever been at, but it was cold. It
it's
was
up
it was
there.
top two, I think. Um, yeah, and I thought what you talked about people not really noticing what happened. I mean, people were paying attention, but it was like, oh, okay, let's just see if this not trifecta, whatever is this win place thing finishes out, right? We got the first part of it.
Right.
Does the second part play out? And there really wasn't any doubt. I mean, there was this stupid little interception or fumble earlier, whatever it was, and Maryland scores. You're like, oh, what is this? But then after that, it was all Penn State. The game was never in doubt, and it really wasn't as much about watching the game and what was happening on the field for me as kind of taking it all in. I mean, I found myself okay looking at the stadium. Well, okay, now if they go to Indianapolis and win, nobody's coming back in the stadium again,
Right.
right? So I was distracted by that, even though, who knows, maybe they're back in 2 weeks. So there were all these other little pieces because the game, it wasn't about the game. It's about the connection, the emotion, the feeling beyond it, and something bigger than it, which now became the Big Ten championship.
I think that's a really good way to put it because there was just like so much happening on Saturday that you couldn't kind of like Saturday went very quick for a 3:30 game. and a longer day. And maybe that's because we started the tailgate much later, which was hanging out at bars. Um, I I I think let's start with the immediacy of the fact that Penn State finished the season 11-1, which one of the things that you will get to celebrate in this recap of things that I was wrong on. Yep, go ahead, go ahead. Um, was Steve picking Penn State to go 11-1, and I think all things aside, regardless of what that one is, it's not easy to go 11-1. There are how many college football teams, and how many of them right now are sitting at 11-1 or better? Not very many. I think it's maybe what, 4 or 5. And I just think that is this in some ways, regardless of what happens on Saturday, regardless of what happens, maybe not regardless, but somewhat of what happens come playoff time, because they're now going to a college football playoff. This is the most impressive James Franklin season that we've ever seen. They hired and replaced two new coordinators, actually three core coordinators. They figure out how to deal with life, the portal, in terms of not really losing that many key guys to the portal. I don't know that they really added that big of a piece. Julian Fleming probably is the star prize. Nolan Marucci coming in big now, I guess, on the line. But I think the consistency and the taking care of businessness of this season, besides also the other fact of kind of clearing out the closet of these ghosts that have been haunting Penn State, which we've talked about time and time again. I think this might have been James Franklin's most impressive regular season so far, I think.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, maybe.
Yes,
Like
maybe.
instead of
Why?
my yes and well, I think the coordinators make sense. I think adding the coordinators, I think dealing with pay for play, I think all the things that James Franklin's good at, right? James Franklin, program manager, CEO coach, right? All those things checked all the boxes, right? But this season still isn't all that different because they're, and I'm looking forward to going to the championship game and checking it all out and whatever else. And it's more from checking it out than crazy fan.
Right.
But they are still third in their division in the conference because there's only one division and they're behind Oregon and Ohio State, right? Because they lost to Ohio State and they're behind Oregon at this point. So in some ways, I think you're yes on all that stuff. But I was thinking about this today and I didn't know you were going there. Like they still got to win a game somewhere yet this season,
I
and
do agree with
preferably
that.
against the conference opponent. Like it preferably be this one because if they lose the conference championship game, then basically Oregon is just Michigan, and they're going to they're going to a bowl game that they're going to play at home in the first round of the playoffs, and they've got to win that then. Like, I mean, I think all the ancillary business stuff has been perfect and good, and that's what we say Coach Franklin does. The people that the stuff that he gets criticism about is winning the big game. This is now the big game. You know, this is this week's 1-0, even if you only do the 1-0 thing. But they are still in some ways, and they aren't elite yet. I mean, in
I don't
terms
think
of
they're there yet.
right.
No.
So I think they need to win a game, and this weekend would be better than if they win this weekend, then they're almost expected to win the next one or two, right? And then there's some little bit of pressure. But I don't know, regular season wise, yeah, I think it's a very successful regular season. It's as successful as he has had. But if you look at it, you step back and look at it, they're still the third best team in the Big Ten. And the Big Ten East was the Big Ten before that, and they were the third best team
Fair.
there. That's all. I mean, it's
Okay.
nitpicky, but that's all.
I think it's fair, but I guess yes, but I would challenge it on the regular season notion, I guess, would be the qualifier there. Now, I do think I am fascinated in what happens on Saturday. We'll get to Saturday a little bit more if they lose, but like if they win, it's all Saturday's very fascinating. Um, let's go there. I think we're in a good spot. We can start. I think a win on Saturday is interesting in the sense of a couple things. Number one, they like James Franklin said, it's actually the easier route to get to the playoff, or to sorry, the easier route to win a national title is to get a bye. and because you get more rest, you can kind of you might get an easier seating line. You are leaving it up, and I think the other thing is if you lose, it's you're leaving it up to the committee of not that I don't think because they're going to the playoff at this point. That's a guarantee, virtual lock, I would say. The thing is, though, you're leaving it up. Are they going to be a 5 seed if they lose? Are they going to be anywhere from 5 to? I could see them being 9. I don't know that they go to 10, but like I could see them really docking them for depending on also what else happens in terms of seating and stuff like that. Like the committee could hurt them there, and I think that's interesting. So I that is kind of going back to the point where like I didn't care about them going to Indianapolis. Like that was, it's almost like it's like a free dessert on top of a really good meal. But now it's like, okay, actually really want that dessert because I that dessert is completes like you kind of what you're getting at. So yes, I do agree with I think regular season wise, for as much stuff as they fought through and figured out and could have lost and didn't lose, I think that's why it was so impressive to me. But I do agree with you in the sense of the yes and that they need to we need to see something more. I don't think necessarily a home playoff win does that. I think 2 playoff wins and get them
Yep.
getting to a
Right.
semifinal does do
Yeah.
that as well. So that's about where I sit with it right now.
I think I remember 2016 feeling so unexpected, right?
Mhm.
Every week was, oh, we did that. Oh, they did that. Oh my, oh, wow, they did that. And there were more expectations coming into this season in some ways. So it hasn't been that awe inspiring isn't the right word, but surprising on some levels. People expected this for the most part to attempt to be this successful. But it makes it's what makes all the coaches' cliches ring true, right? Win the game, and make that easier path for yourself. Win the conference championship game and take the decision out of other people's hands. Go in as the number one seed overall or whatever they make it, but earn yourself some time off, right? I
Right.
mean, if nothing else, I mean that's certainly worth playing for now because they're playing in the first round somewhere if they lose. If they win, they get some time off to heal,
Right.
to rest, to plan, to prepare. And I don't think a week off is going to make you any less sharp at this level of competition at this point of the season.
'Cause the Rose Bowl is what? Is this year yeah, this year's a the Rose Bowl's on the 1st this year, so that's which they would go to the Rose Bowl because the tie-ins or whatever, that would be the natural selection for them. That's 21 days, 22 days away as opposed to 13 days if that. Like you get a whole extra week, which for injuries, things like that, a big difference. A big difference. I think that's a good point. So I think that brings us to Saturday in that I think he could shut up a lot of people. I think he can kind of plant that flag. Like I don't want to say a second chance opportunity fell into his lap because that is not because they earned that. They earned the right to be in Indianapolis, even if by way some of it was some other stuff had to happen. They still have to be an 11-1 football team to even get themselves in that conversation. But he's at least got another second chance opportunity here to kind of answer a lot of things that people have questioned or wondered about or made you second guess him. Things that we have talked about from week 1. If you go back and read the season preview, like or listen to our season preview episode, and I think that's interesting to me there.
Yeah, it's got to be exciting from the team side of it, right? You want to. It's not a cliche that Franklin says about wanting to play the best team, to prove yourself. That's more of a Turnerism. We wanted people to be healthy and play the best team anytime we get a chance. But this is Oregon's been basically number one all season, at least right there,
Right.
right? So this is your chance to say, because Penn State's kind of snuck up there by not losing after the Ohio State loss or before that kind of worked their way up the rankings. So I think it's an interesting matchup. It'll be fun, and it's a great opportunity for Penn State to do something it's only done once before in the program history, right? Win Big Ten championship or championship game. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's exciting, and I think there's it feels like there's some excitement around it in town already, and on social and stuff like that. So it'll be fun to see what the turnout's like too.
I was gonna say that I think that's the other fun aspect of this. I have another point that I want to get to, but I think it's more of a question. I want to just saying that mentally so that we get to it. Um, I think right now, like you and I were sitting here chatting about our plans already. Steve has St. Elmo's reservations, and he didn't invite me, which is fine. It's fine. I'm not bitter about it. Um, but
That was
I
well
think
played. Well played.
there are people, or there's a grassroots to this whole thing. Steve has been texting me, "Hey, what's your plan?" We've been texting with our other friends, "Hey, what's your plan?" It's very much different than a bowl game because it's like you got to make decisions and you got to make them soon. As opposed to a bowl game, you got a little bit of time to figure it out. Not everybody's like more people are in, and I like the feeling of almost like the high school football team driving to the state championship game of like there's going to be a lot of Penn Staters on 70 on Friday and probably even Saturday morning with how late the game is. And I just think that's a neat thing that I have I think that's another thing that has made this whole vibe and whole feeling fun. Going back to even that moment in the stadium when we were standing there watching the final Ohio State play and people were cheering. Um, which was funny. Andrew Robinson, who collegiate guy, DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Man, there's nothing better than watching a crazy Michigan game inside Beaver Stadium that doesn't involve Penn State." And he said, signed from somebody that watched the App State game back all the way back in 2007 or whatever. So I thought that was a good line. No, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited. I think a lot of people have very good memories of 2016. A lot of people have very cherished memories. I even brought my stadium cup with me this week to drink out of. So I'm excited to get a new stadium cup. And I think even if kind of like what you said, like there's maybe not 2016 was very much a surprise. 2024 has been we're just along for the ride and we'll see what happens here type thing. And I think that's the way I'm looking at it.
And now when I'm making that ride on Friday, I'm going to hear every time we pass a car that's a Penn State thing, or if we stop at a rest stop and we see Penn State people, I'm going to feel like I'm hearing the Hoosiers music when they're going to the playoffs, right? Because we're driving through Indiana. Like it's going to be like the team and the buses going through at night to the next game. I got that in my mind now. So, and I've got my 2016 Big Ten championship football cling that somebody pulled off a window from a hotel for me when we were there last time. One of my friends, like, I'm like, hey, we got to leave right after the game, but if those things are there and you can get one, and like 2 days later, he's like, here you go. So
So
yeah,
if Steve's friend is listening, he would also like a 2024
I
one,
know I got to
assuming.
reach out to Jeff Smith and see if he's going.
Uh,
I want to thank the students belatedly that weren't there because they weren't on their phones taking up bandwidth, which allowed me during the game to be texting from the top of the stadium to tell Susan and Terry that, hey, what do you think about doing this? And by the time we got home, we had tickets and an Airbnb lined up. So thank you, students, for making it possible
yeah,
for me to
there
like
you go.
get my messages out.
Did you sneak into the student section? Did you get there, or were you access
No, I didn't
denied?
know because I did not have the heart for them to tell me no.
Okay. All right.
Did you try? You didn't try. You
No,
were
I
already
didn't
down on the
try.
other end.
No, no.
No, I'm sure.
Although I did go to that end to like well, Anna used that end to go to the bathroom and warm up. But we did go down to the tunnel to see the tunnel club mainly. Um, so yeah, okay.
No,
Um,
I'm sure they were protecting the section. And we heard because I don't stay to the end. Steve Jones was raving about how supportive the crowd was, and how large the turnout was despite the weather. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, like, but man, people leaving before and after I left, there was as many. There were tailgates down Porter Road before we left our seats, which is a lot for
really?
me. Oh, I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
That
Yes, because you know
cold?
me, halftime, early third, man, and we stuck around. But there were taillights. Like Russ turned around, he's like, "Do you believe that they're leaving?" I'm like, "Game's over,"
Yeah. Oh, oh,
So
oh. I thought you said tailgates.
or
I
taillights. Sorry,
lights.
taillight. Maybe I
Okay.
did say
That yeah.
taillights. Sorry,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
misspoke.
Um.
What's your question?
Okay. My question. It's more of a rhetorical question because I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you.
This is
In
like
my
being at home
lifetime,
already.
in my lifetime, so I was born in '94. I'm the same age as your youngest daughter. Has Penn State ever been closer to a national title? I guess we count '94, sure, baby, but
No,
like the
no, no. This is it.
that was exactly what I was thinking. Like I don't know when it kind of hit me, and I think that was kind of the deliriousness of the last 72 ish hours, kind of wearing off and gripping with reality. Penn State has a very like we aren't just talking about them winning a Big Ten championship game. We aren't just talking about them winning a home playoff game. There's a very real path that Penn State could be playing for a national championship in January, and I think that is very cool, very exciting, little weird because like I said, we've never really got to experience or see something like this. Um, so I was thinking about that, and I think that's another thing that kind of goes back to credit to James Franklin on that one.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I this is a reach, but it's I think it's also correct since I'm saying it. Like the softer non-conference schedules through the year will make these kind of like what hurt them in 2016 was Pitt, right? I mean,
Yep.
in theory, they were going to get grace from Michigan and playing their 15 linebacker and losing out there. But what hurts them is the Pitt game that they should have won. Here, there's no non-conference loss. There's no, and there's not going to be in the next 4 or 5 years because they're not going to be playing anybody that hurts them. So, and what matters is the number after the dash. Like, forget about strength of schedule. I mean, not that you don't forget about it. We'll see how the committee values it. But W's matter, and they
Yep.
got all the ones they were supposed to, except for Ohio State. So, no, that's the answer is, the answer to the rhetorical question is no, they haven't been this close to it.
Because
No.
and I think like some of that also is like byproduct of the because '94 there was not a BCS system, right? That was one of the last years without a BCS system. That
Yeah,
was
they
when
weren't
they were
going
still
to,
handing it out.
right.
Um, so like I guess really this is the most well positioned Penn State has probably been for a national championship, which is wild to say since and like obviously like yes, they were well positioned every other year between now and then, and obviously they should have. But like now they're on the dance floor. They are in the room. They are on the dance floor. Comparatively to 2016, 2017, even or 94 or 2000. I was thinking about 2005, which was a Orange Bowl year. They were three, but then like obviously Texas and that's Texas and USC, and then 2000 would have been 2008, the last time they were 11-1. That was the Rose Bowl, so that would have been I don't remember who the national championship game was that year. Um, but they're in the equation. They can actually do something about controlling their own destiny to a national title game, regardless
Do
of what
you,
happens this Saturday.
do you think, how many people do you else, how many people do you think are also thinking that way in terms of the fan base? Because
Uh,
they're on the dance floor, but there's a lot of dance moves between here and there at the same time.
sure. I don't know. I mean, I completely misjudged this whole Indianapolis situation. Because clearly I was in the minority on that. Maybe you were in the
Yeah, I
minority.
didn't think they were winning. I mean, I don't know. But then I
I
didn't
didn't.
think about
I
Michigan
maybe I
going out and
didn't
do what they
think
did.
about them wanting to go to Indianapolis. I guess is a better way to say that.
Yeah, I thought
Ah,
it was the right lip service from Coach Franklin when asked about it before the game. Right, anytime we get a chance to compete, we want to do that.
right,
It's a championship. We want to play for it. It sounded like coach speak, but realistically, I mean, and it was, but realistically, it is the easiest path to your ultimate goals. Right?
right.
Why have to play another game to get where you want to go to? Right. So if we win this one, we get one off, and we're one step closer.
Back to your question. I don't know. Like I really don't know how many people are thinking that way. I think the animosity, kind of going back to that 11-1 conversation that you brought up, of people still not seeing proof in the pudding, which I agree with. I do agree with that. Is there? I think mm, people are upset about like little things like the wide receiver coach situations and things like that that like that's why I'm like saying like I at least stop for a second and smell the roses here because 11-1 is very impressive and I think that goes back to and so I don't know like it's I think they have I think the title odds are they like are the betting odds put them fifth or sixth. I haven't looked at any of those. I saw that Oregon slid into one after Ohio State lost, but then I only saw the top four, and I think the college football playoff thing on ESPN has them at like an 8% chance of winning it. But an 8% chance is a whole hell of a lot more than zero, and I think that's a cool thing, and I'm gonna celebrate that. And if it doesn't happen, oh well, they haven't won a national championship in my lifetime. So, but I just think it's neat to say, hey, they can win a national championship here, reasonable with reasonable, valid reasoning, logic.
Yeah, no, it's not crazy land. They can, and it'll be fun to see them give it a shot.
So yeah. Okay. Um, I want to go back and visit our. Okay. I gotta pull up one other thing. So if you want to jump in a time machine and go back to August, which feels like it was literally yesterday. Apparently, we recorded this episode on August 26th. That's what I named this spreadsheet file that I called August 26th show. Um, we did our over under, and we have another set of guesses to also go over too. I just want to call out. So we had, let's see, I'll call it like 15 questions, 13 questions here. The first question was, will the renovations be done by the Illinois game? They were. They largely were. I think the only thing that was not done was the escalator. We walked into, I think, the Bowling Green game and were stunned to see the super ribbon boards. Don't know that they added that much more than just ads. They have some cool graphic packages and things like that on them, but I don't know. What did you went to 3 games, stood behind directly in front of the Super Ribbon board from
They did
at
they
least
did what
one.
they wanted them to do, right? They gave them more visible ads, right? That's what they were supposed to do. I think kudos to them for adapting with the other not renovations, but game day presentation stuff, right? From
Changing it
scoreboard fonts and
mid-season.
whatever else, and adapting. I just hope they kept the notes in the computer settings for the start of next season of the playoff game, so they're all the same after a layoff, right? Like, because that's been the thing that hasn't been the case.
Um, who would get a bigger reaction, Pommel Horse guy or Aaron Brooks? Pommel Horse guy didn't show up, but with a valid reason because he was kicking butt on Dancing with the
Dancing with the
Stars.
Stars.
So Steve and I were both wrong on that. We both said Pommel Horse guy. Um, we both took the over on game day, which was a point 0.5.
You got
Um,
it.
and we got that one. Proud of us on that one. Big noon games, 2.5. I said over, you said under. I believe I was right in that situation.
Yeah, if you
Right?
count the whole season, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So um Big Noon I think took a big hit this year. I think it really took a step back. And I think NBC took a step forward. I think CBS has done a really nice job with their broadcasts. I'm interested to watch this one back on Saturday. Um
Did Big
I
Noon take a step back because of perception and reaction, or because of what you actually of the production? I mean,
I think both. I think
okay,
perception and reaction in terms of the forced noon kickoff, but I don't think their broadcasts have been. I think of the 4 main carriers, if you want to get that way, go that way with it: ESPN, Fox, NBC, and CBS. I mean, I know those other two really only have like 3.5 rights deals or 3.5 games, um, depending on the week. I just think by far Fox is the worst product. It's not strong. It's not connecting with audiences the way the other ones are. I think the other brands have done a really nice job connecting with the audiences.
especially in a sport that it's all about connection with
Right,
the audience, right? Like that's
right.
just yeah.
Um, we asked, Will, are you ready for the fourth quarter return? And unfortunately, it did. I got that one unfortunately right. Steve got that one unfortunately wrong. Will Steve enter the stadium? Yes, and we I think we didn't have an over under on it, but you 2 games this year?
Three, we had
Oh, three. Oh,
well,
wow.
Ohio State briefly, right? So there was
Oh,
there
right.
was
Yeah.
bookended it basically,
Yeah.
beginning and
Right
end, and yeah, yeah.
in the middle.
Saw you
Um,
saw you 2 out of 3, so that wasn't bad. That was
yeah.
good.
How many games will I make it to Steve's tailgate though? I set that at 1.5.
But
Way
it's
under.
way over there in the
It's
middle
so
there. It's
far.
it's so
It
far
is
away.
so far. It is so far. Okay. Now the ones that actually kind of matter. Wins over the new Big Ten opponents, which Penn State will become the first Big Ten team to play all of the new Big Ten teams this Saturday when they play Oregon. We set this at 2.5. So they played 3 in the regular season: UCLA, which they beat; Washington, which they beat; and USC, which they beat. We both said over on that, so we were both right there.
Didn't
Um,
respect the newcomers at all.
yeah, clearly not. Um, this is the only one that I think we're not. This is one and two. What one of two that we're not clear on. We don't have a clear picture on. Will Penn State have a Heisman Trophy finalist? We both said no, do we consider early polling of Tyler Warren being at least in the top 10 a finalist?
Oh, and I think if he's not a finalist, if he's not like the top six, right? Four gets you invited, right? Six. At this point, I would vote differently on that question. Yes.
Knowing what we know now, yes. I think
Yeah,
that
that's
would be a
all.
good way to say that. I think that's an interesting subplot to Saturday's game. The votes, I've seen a couple people that have votes tweet that they've already voted. Some people will say they're waiting until the conference championships. They have until Sunday at some time to put their vote in. I certainly think if Tyler Warren has an impressive game against Oregon on Saturday, Penn State wins, he at least puts himself in a much higher conversation than Cam Ward. I think it easily comes to mind. I don't think he's
Yeah,
going to win it. I'm not arguing that he's going to win it. I think Travis Hunter probably should deserve it, deservedly so. Get it? Maybe Ashton Genty you could make the case for as well, but um, I think there's a legitimate reason for Tyler Warren being in the top 3 or 4 uh,
I
of this.
agree. I agree.
Uh, we were both wrong on the next one, which was will Penn State make it to Indy? They will make it to Indy, so that's fun. Okay, we both said Penn State would make the playoff though, so that's good. Other one that we don't know is games in State College in December. You have an over. I said no, so I guess that's how we're picking Saturday's game. If you no, just not putting pressure on
I
you.
got to be Mr. Positive. Mr.
Yeah,
Positive again is what
see.
you're saying.
Yeah. And of course, Steve was right on the record prediction of 11-1. I said 10-2. Um, yeah, happy to be wrong. Happy to be wrong. The other thing that really matters, though, the thing that really matters, which I think we both got. Hold on, I need to update the scoreboard real quickly. In our guesses, our TV and time guesses, we did these all the way back in
Uh,
May, which became our most read article on the blog because people search for this. So we set ourselves up with an SEO win. Was really what we did here, and we're all winners. Even though it's me, I won. I won.
you got a bunch of them right. I
I
only probably
got
got like two.
I got 11 points. So I gave 1 point for time, 1 point for TV.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
So wait,
you got
there were what, 12 home games?
there was 24 total points you could get. So
Okay. And you got 11.
like a
Okay.
46%.
Okay.
You got
Like a
six and a
five.
half,
Yeah.
and I gave you
You
and
gave
I
me
gave
credit
you
for what?
halves for Peacock. And you had said NBC. I think you had said NBC, and the game was on Peacock, or Peacock, and vice versa. So you at least were in the ballpark. Oh, and I think I gave you a half point for the Washington game being at 7, or that game was at 8, and you said 7:30.
7:30. Okay. Okay.
So
That was
better
nice.
luck next year.
I appreciate the soft grading. That's nice.
So better luck next year. We will
Thank
do
you.
this again next year. This is
That
on
works. It's fine.
the list. This was it's funny, like there was a little lull in the middle of the season where we both just kind of were really striking out. I did get the USC game, but other than that, those were the only points scored from UCLA to Wisconsin. But then kind of towards the end, we kind of picked back up. It's hard to guess anything after really like November. So I'm proud of us. I think one of the things I want to do next year, and this is a sneak preview into next season, I want to do like how the New York Times does like the election thing. It's like mid-election, there's the needle. I want to do
Yeah.
like that, but for as people search for games like Ohio State, Penn State, the needle is closer to like noon, and then the needle is closer to Fox. We'll get that idea fully fleshed out before football season. All right. Well, I'm proud of us. We
Cool.
we weren't that wrong. That's what we're
Nice. We
saying
weren't
here.
that wrong.
Yeah.
That'll do. We weren't that wrong.
See, okay. Let's get it out of here with this week's Old Guy, Young Guy. It is brought to you by a podcast I listened to with Spencer Hall and Bomani Jones recently, and they spent an hour just talking about Christmas music. And the final question of the podcast was, what is the best Christmas song? And you can't just say Jingle Bells. You have to say Jingle Bells by Michael Bublé. So,
Okay.
Steve Samsel, what is the best Christmas
Well, I'm
song?
glad you made this old guy, young guy, because I'm going to skew old. It's It's White Christmas by Bing Crosby.
Of course you would say that. Of course you would say that. I've struggled with this. I think my answer usually depends on what week of Christmas as like we get closer to Christmas because one of these is. But you know what song I really love, and it's a band that I don't really like that much. It's a little more on the older guy spectrum. Uh, it's Christmas, Baby Please to Come Home by U2.
Okay.
There's a little earworm in there that I just like I really enjoy. So I think that is my favorite Christmas song, or at least what I think is the best Christmas song. Um,
Not Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Bruce Springsteen from what,
it's up
CW Post University in 1979, wherever it
it's
was
up
recorded.
there. Like
Okay.
that one's up there. I think the only other one that comes to mind, like that would probably be 1B. 1C is Christmas is All Around, the song that Bill Nighy's character sings in Love Actually.
Yep. Well, and I can go older, and this is probably the OG original OG Christmas song, because for whatever reason we had an album of Gene Autry when I was growing up, his Christmas thing. So Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Gene Autry would probably be
That's a good one.
the one, honestly.
Is there one that you're just like, what's your one that you're just like, I don't want to hear this song?
That's
Like I hate that. Like the one that's really gotten bad for me is the is it simply having a wonderful Christmas time, the Beatles one or
yeah.
Paul McCartney one. That one's bad.
What's
There's
the
this
one that's the most popular one, like the Paul Abdul one, or whichever? Who's the singer that's the most? It's not
did
her.
you
It's
say
some other.
Paula Abdul?
It's some
Yeah,
other.
the Mariah Carey.
That's her. That's her.
Dude,
They're
you're
all
gonna
the
get
same.
canceled for that take.
I probably will. Sorry, if they got this far in the podcast, they know I'm not any good. But yes, that one doesn't do much
That
for me.
one? No. I think that one's been overdone. Like the problem with that one is the sample size has really ruined it. There's this one that Anna listens to that from her childhood. It's like Dominic the Christmas Donkey or something.
But yeah,
And
yeah.
and there's like a donkey noise in it, and that's like part of the song. It's one of the worst songs I've ever heard.
Wait. Wasn't Dominic? He wasn't associated with them, but I am shocked that Dominic the Christmas Donkey wasn't somewhere near the airplay of the three crazy little puppet things on the Johnstown TV channel that aired late at night.
Oh, well, so there was
Coco and something.
Coco. I'm Hard Rock. He's Coco. I'm Joe.
Yeah, like that. Like I would think
I like
Dominic
those
is adjacent to those guys.
which is fair, but I like the nostalgia of that.
Good songs. So we'll do Christmas TV specials next week.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that. Maybe
Okay.
Commercials actually. We should
Okay,
do
okay.
commercials.
Or if you have a suggestion for what you want us
Yeah.
to talk about next week, let us know.
Well, we will have a football game to talk about, and I think did we schedule? If next week we are going to debate our Big Ten, or I'm sorry, our Penn State Sports Person of the Year award. We're going to
talked
debate
about it,
and
yes. Yep.
hand that out maybe next week. We'll talk about that. We've got a game to talk about. Steve and I are going to Indy, so if you're going to Indy, first off, if you're listening to this podcast on your way to Indy, thank you. Secondly, if you're going to Indy, text one of us. Sure, we will gladly hang out with you, say hello to you. I'm again very jealous of Steve's reservations. Partly because I am married to someone that does not eat steak. So, although she could do the shrimp, so maybe I'll double check to see if anything opens up. I'll just eat from a different table. While
I know someone who believes that perhaps Ohio State fans jumped the gun on their reservations and might be canceling. So maybe there's a chance you should check and see.
Okay. All right. That's what I'm going to do. So there's that. So, yeah, see you in Indy. Like I said, website is called stuffsummersays.com. On that website, there's a section called With
Steve.
We've got a podcast, what you're listening to, 5 stars, thumbs up, subscribe. We've got emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Lastly, we've got Twitter handles. Mine's at stuffsummersays. Steve's is
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.